Welcome back everybody to another in my aviation history series, and this is episode 29 in my series on the history of the RCAF. Today we'll be looking at the history of 426 Squadron, from its start in World War II as a bombing unit till today as a Transport OTU. 426 has a long and illustrious career in the RCAF. But before we get too far into this, my name is Sean, and this is Sean's Aviation. 426 Squadron was formed on October 15th of 1942 at Dishforth, England as the RCAF's 7th Bomber Squadron. It was assigned the squadron code OW and received their first aircraft, Wellington Mark IIIs, that month. They spent the next few months working up and training on the Wellingtons. On January 1st of 1943, the unit was moved to 6th Group, the new Canadian Bomber Group, but this was a paper transfer and no change was noticed by the unit. They flew their first mission on the night of January 14th, 15th of 1943, a bombing mission to Lorient, and no aircraft were lost. In March, the unit converted to the Wellington Mark X, which had more powerful engines. On June 18th of 1943, the unit moved to Linton-on-Ouse and would remain here for the remainder of their combat tour. This move also brought around a change in aircraft, from the Wellington to the Lancaster. They were one of only 2 RCAF units to convert to the Lancaster Mark II, the Bristol Hercules-powered variant. This was done as there was a fear of a Merlin engine shortage, and the RAF wanted to ensure they had options if this happened. Luckily, the Packard-built Merlin helped keep the supply chain fed, and the Mark II, which had slightly poorer performance, did not get built in large numbers. The unit nonetheless flew the Mark II to its full potential, and most crews grew to love the aircraft. In April of 1944, the unit converted to the Halifax Mark III. On June 6th, D-Day, the unit was tasked with attacking a gun battery in France, and 16 aircraft were dispatched, with 1 aircraft being lost. During the month of June, the unit also started to slowly convert to the Halifax Mark VII. These were more or less identical to the Mark III, but had more powerful engines. During the transition, the unit flew both types on operations. 426 flew its final bombing mission on April 25th of 1945, when it bombed gun positions off the coast of Germany. At this point, with the war in Europe winding down, the war in the Pacific was still in full swing. As we have seen with 422 and 423 squadrons, it was decided to convert this unit to a transport unit operating Liberators. As the unit already flew 4-engined aircraft, specifically land-based versus seaplanes, the conversion did not take long. They moved to Dryfield on May 25th for a short period, before moving to Tempsford on June 25th. The first Liberators arrived in July, and after some quick training flights, flew their first transport mission on September 30th, when 2 Liberators departed for India, both with 26 passengers on board. Their tempo was high, and as we shall soon see, the majority of their flights were to the Far East. On December 29th of 1945, the last Liberator returned from its mission to India, and flying operations for the unit ceased. They were officially stood down on January 1st of 1946. During World War II, as a bomber unit, 426 flew 3,233 sorties, flying a total of 11,184 operational hours. They dropped 8,997 tons of bombs and were credited with 4 enemy aircraft destroyed, 1 probable, and 5 damaged. The unit lost 88 aircraft, with 87 crew killed, 337 presumed dead, 97 POWs, and 36 who either evaded capture or were interned. As a transport unit, 426 Squadron flew 242 sorties with 5,631 operational hours. They transported 5,500 passengers and lost no aircraft. Now, as I mentioned, the tempo was high as a transport unit. 242 sorties and 5,500 passengers in 6 months. That's 40 flights a month, with an average of 23 passengers per flight. The post-war life of 426 started relatively quickly when the unit was stood back up in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia on August 1st of 1946, just 8 months after disbanding in Europe. It was once again in the transport role and took over the personnel and aircraft from the Eastern Detachment of 164 Squadron, flying Dakota aircraft. On March 10th of 1947, the unit moved to Dorval, Quebec, which is now known as Trudeau Airport in Montreal. In September of 1947, the unit began to receive Canadair North Stars, replacing their Dakotas. The North Star was a Canadian licensed-built version of the Douglas C-54. Now, I do plan to do a video at some point on this aircraft, but basically the North Star had a C-54 wing with a shortened DC-6 fuselage and a DC-4 tail fitted with Merlin engines. So these greatly enhanced the cargo capabilities of the early RCAF, and the unit was kept busy with long-haul cargo flights. In July of 1950, a detachment of 426 Squadron was sent to McChord Air Force Base in Washington State and took part in Operation Hawk, the RCAF's transport commitment to the Korean War. Between July of 1950 and June of 1954, the unit flew 600 round trips between North America and Tokyo, carrying 13,000 personnel and 7 million pounds of cargo without a single incident. The unit also flew a number of missions on behalf of the UN, resupplying personnel in both the Middle East and the Congo. On September 1st of 1959, the unit moved to Trenton, but this did not last long, as when 437 Squadron stood up on October of 1961 with the Yukon, there was a lack of space in Trenton, and 426 moved to St. Hubert on January 1st of 1962. With the withdrawal from service of the North Stars, 426 was to be no more, and the unit disbanded at St. Hubert on September 1st of 1962. This was not the end of 426, as it was reformed at CFB Uplands in Ottawa as the Transport OTU, or Operational Training Unit, on May 3rd of 1971. It then started to train new pilots and loadmasters in the art of tactical and strategic transport. The unit was transferred to Trenton in August of that year, where they remain to this day. Today, 426 remains at Trenton and continues to provide valuable training for new members of the RCAF in the transport role on the current fleet, including the Hercules, Polaris, Globemaster, and Challenger. With the recent addition of the CC-330, 426 has a whole new airframe that crews will need to be trained on, and the unit should be around for many years to come. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time.